The presidency of Jimmy Carter was, in many respects, one of good intentions gone awry. So in a single term filled with missteps, what was his biggest regret? Jimmy Carter was elected after Richard Nixon's infamous path to resignation and Gerald Ford's subsequent assumption of the office. For many, Carter represented a breath of fresh air. Indeed, he was an outsider unassociated with the recent corruption who would bring at least relative respectability back to the presidency. But Americans felt mixed about his initial performance and personal character, and public opinion began to turn once the Iranian Revolution unfolded. Not only was there the unprecedentedly massive hostage crisis, but as the Brookings Institution explains, global fuel prices soared as Iranian oil workers conducted strikes. It is arguably these economic factors that helped lead the American public in the opposite direction, with the election of Ronald Reagan. In regards to Carter's own reflections on his presidency, his biggest regret has to do with his handling of the hostage crisis itself. Notably, he believes the rescue attempt could have been far less disastrous. After decades of rule under Iran's American-backed Shah, complete with democratically elected figures being ousted, various groups rose up in revolt during the Iranian Revolution. The American embassy in Tehran became the focal point of this anger, and the ensuing Iranian hostage crisis initially saw 66 Americans held captive before 13 were released. The remaining 53 were held for more than a year as Jimmy Carter's administration tried to find a solution. They settled on Operation Eagle Claw, the planned military extraction of the hostages via helicopter in April 1980. The military would swoop in like an eagle with its talons open, ready to clutch and rescue. The operation, however, ended in complete failure after a series of mechanical and navigational issues led to a helicopter colliding with a transport aircraft, killing 8 service members. Several aircraft were abandoned and no hostages were rescued. So what would Carter have done differently, given the chance at a do-over?
I wish I had sent one more helicopter to get the hostages, and we would have rescued them, and I would have been reelected. But that may have...
Even though President Carter states that one more helicopter would have made Operation Eagle Claw a success, it's impossible to know how one additional helicopter might have changed the outcome of the mission. Insider describes an incredibly complex collaboration between all 4 branches of the military and multiple U.S. Special Forces divisions on the day of the operation. An operation with so many moving parts that a whole host of things could have gone wrong. The operation was hampered right from the get-go by a civilian bus and fuel truck, the latter of which was destroyed because it didn't obey a command to stop. As seen in this animation in the 2019 documentary Desert One, there were also mechanical problems with 2 of the helicopters, and since a minimum of 6 helicopters was needed to pull the whole thing off, the mission got delayed. The next attempt saw more accidents on the parts of those involved, and that's when one helicopter collided with a transport plane. Hence Carter's statement that one more helicopter would have made a difference. 8 U.S. military personnel died, and 8 vehicles were destroyed. Some called it a failure, others a fiasco. However, none of those occurrences could possibly fall solely on Carter's shoulders. That being said, the CIA did blame the former president for hampering the operation in other ways, because of executive decisions that limited intelligence gathering leeway. Even though President Carter regards the failure to rescue all the U.S. hostages during the Iran hostage crisis as his greatest failure, he also says that it allowed him to start his greatest and most helpful endeavor, the Carter Center. The Carter Center has been a major force since the 1980s in a wide variety of humanitarian ventures targeting disease mitigation and elimination. The former president has also been involved in a number of diplomatic, human rights-based initiatives, like the Human Rights Program, as well as work with Habitat for Humanity, the National Foundation for Infectious Diseases, and more. In 2002, he won the Nobel Peace Prize. President Carter arguably wouldn't have had the chance to do any of these things if he'd been elected president for a second term, or at least such ventures would have unfolded quite differently. According to CNN, he once said of his lost re-election, That may have interfered with the foundation of the Carter Center. And if I had to choose between 4 more years, I think I would choose the Carter Center.